Some of Australia's biggest and best-known retailers are squaring for a fight with the federal government over foreign imports. They're up in arms over shoppers ordering goods from overseas valued at less than $1,000 without having to pay import duties or the GST on the products. But some say these companies are missing the mark, and there are bigger issues besetting the retail sector, which employs more than 1 million people. Tanya Nolan reports.
Most of the nation's retail stores may be in the grip of post-Christmas sales, but there's always a bargain to be found on the internet.
I think there's also an element of excitement. You know, something coming through the post from online does get inside people, and frankly, going into a lot of our retail stores is a fairly predictable, mundane experience by comparison.
Surveys show that clothing and footwear, along with travel goods, books, CDs and home appliances, are among the most popular online purchases. Online shopping has become a new battlefront for big retailers.
We're talking about overseas retailers versus Australian retailers.
Ironically, David Jones scrapped its online store in 2003, claiming it cost the company too much money. And in 2008, the then CEO, Mark McGuinness, told investors the company had no intention of resurrecting it.
The concept of retail therapy is alive and well. People like to go shopping, and you've got to try things on to see the way they look. And from our perspective, that's everything.
David Jones has since had a change of heart, relaunching its online store just before Christmas. But it's joined with other big retailers, including Myer, Harvey Norman and Target, in a campaign to lobby the government over what they describe as an unlevel playing field. The fact that overseas retailers are exempt from import duties and the GST on purchases under $1,000.
If our sales are reduced because consumers can immediately get a $200 benefit for every $1,000 purchase if they buy offshore, then that will obviously impact our sales, and obviously we're going to have to cut back working hours of floor staff, and eventually you will see it in the form of redundancies. We don't want a situation where Australian consumers are penalised just because they support Australian retailers. They shouldn't be encouraged to send their money offshore and stimulate overseas economies rather than our own. It doesn't make sense.
It's not about GST. This is about technology, not tax. And you can't be like King Canute and turn back the waves of that technology. It's already swamped the royal court, if you like. So really, it's a red herring. It's a distraction. We want retailers to embrace new technology. And part of this story is, I'm afraid, that our big retailers have fairly second-rate online offerings, which again have driven people offshore.
No one can put an exact figure on how much Australians spend on overseas purchases, but best estimates range from between $3.5 billion to $13.5 billion or more. The amounts may be a fraction of the $250 billion the retail sector generates annually, but the big retailers say the money's not insignificant. They're preparing to spend millions on a mining tax-style television ad blitz in the hope of realising a change to the tax system. But Assistant Treasurer Bill Shorten says the government won't be bullied.
Has the government thought this through?
Some of the big retailers live in a world where they think that if they pick up the phone to a government minister, then the next day there'll be a tax put on implementing their wishes. That's not the way this government operates. The Productivity Commission will have public consultations. Then they'll have, and if they like, the big retailers can submit their ads as arguments.
The big retailers aren't happy with the Productivity Commission's review into the Australian retail sector, arguing it will take too long to address their concerns. But they're at odds with others in the industry. The Australian Retailers Association says there are other issues besieging the industry, and a productivity review is the best way to deal with them.
We have one of the highest rents in the world, so I think that's an impediment in retailing. If you take us against some of the Asian retailers and the Asian web retailing sites, that we have to pay superannuation, payroll tax, workers' compensation, all those things, some of those are not payable by those retailers overseas. So from an Australian perspective, we are behind the 8 ball when we start.
Boutique owner Sarah Pakel supports the GST campaign by the bigger retailers, but instead of fighting the trend to online shopping, she's embracing it, offering customers the chance to shop online or at one of her 4 boutiques in Sydney and Melbourne.
A customer uses online shopping for research, that they can go online and look to see what's available before they perhaps come in store. And for us, it's our fastest growing but also our smallest store, but it's certainly a growth part of our business. And I think particularly if the customer feels that they can come back to an actual store and speak to an actual person, then they get the reassurance of not just being a faceless internet site.
While the federal government has asked the Productivity Commission to have another look at the issue of the GST threshold on imported goods, there's good reason to doubt that it will change. In its own look at the issue last year, the Board of Taxation concluded that reducing the threshold would not be administratively feasible.
44 million articles of mail come to Australia. A customs officer can open perhaps 4,000 articles of mail a year. That's 2,000 hours opening a parcel every half hour and checking value. Very expensive to check this system.
But the big retailers won't be deterred.
It's a government-imposed tax, and the government has just forced retailers to collect it on their behalf. So I don't see that as being competitive. I think that is us being penalised, and what we're asking is that that penalty be removed.